Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by onlinegreatbooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. I'm Scott Hambrick.
I'm Karl Schurt.
Yeah. It's good to see you, Karl.
You can barely see me in my dungeon here.
We just recorded a Music and Ideas podcast on the blues.
A 5-hour podcast on everything about the blues.
It's 2 hours and we covered 3%. But welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, where today Karl and I are going to talk a little bit about some poetry. Thomas Gray's Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard. And we also thought that we would be weird and ambitious and talk a little bit about a Norman Rockwell painting. What's the name of this thing?
It is Freedom from Want.
Freedom from Want.
It is, apparently had 4 freedom froms or freedom ofs that he did. And this is from 1943. You can look it up online. It's someone with the big turkey in the middle.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving one. You've seen it, guys.
And if you haven't, you should. And you should look at as much Norman Rockwell as you can.
I don't know how the hell we're going to talk about a picture on the podcast, but we'll get it done.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. We're professionals, right?
Right. So this show here gets a lot more downloads than the Music and Ideas show, Karl. But we haven't had a review on iTunes on this show, I think, since September 23rd. It would sure be helpful to us if you would go out there and give us some reviews, because I think reviews help Apple favor us in their search results. Makes people look interested. I know you guys are all introverted. You're so introverted to the point you won't even go to iTunes and type something in. But if you did, that would be a big help to us. It'd help bump us to the top. We would like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find I actually got a review emailed to me. I'm pulling it up. I should have had it ready. I'm sorry, this is bad pod.
That's okay.
But he found an old email of mine that I don't use very much and sent me an email. I'm not sure why this email's on the internet, but it is. It says, "My name is BJ." I won't give his full name. Wanted to reach out and introduce myself, as well as say thanks. I've been listening to the OGB podcast for several months and finding you all through Scott and the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm a father of 3 young children, farmer, barbell lifter, and lifelong reader. I'm attempting to read more of the great books after reading a lifetime of junk that I can hardly remember. All right, so we did a podcast a long time ago about propaganda, and this is the one that he's responding to. I've been slowly working my way through past episodes, and the Propaganda OGB episode is what struck me and prompted my writing. I hail from Seymour, Tennessee, which is a neighboring town to Sevierville, which you mentioned, visiting the war memorial that covers World War I to Vietnam. Your comments about the family, the Henry clan, that lost members during each war inspired me to go visit the memorial and reach out to anyone I could find from the Henrys. The world is incredibly small because, lo and behold, I worked with a great-nephew of the 5 Henry brothers killed in Europe during World War II. Without hearing your comments, I would have never visited the memorial and been able to hear and reflect on stories from this incredible family and their experiences. For this, I cannot thank you enough. And he says nice things about the podcast. Well, I sure appreciate that. I don't really know what to say, but that's just a wonderful thing. He went and looked at the memorial that I looked at for 5 minutes and had some thoughts about, and he dug up the family, found out that he knew them.
Well, that's just all right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'm very pleased. Thank you, BJ.
Yeah. Memorials. Segue. Memorials, Karl.
What do we need memorials for?
Well, Thomas Gray says we need them because perhaps someone will wonder about you. You'll see those memorials, and then maybe someday someone will inquire thy fate.
So we have this elegy written in a country courtyard, which I think is about memory, and I think it's about people that aren't likely to be remembered.
Yeah, which is most people.
I'm looking up something here. You're going to hear me typing in the background. This is a live podcast we do here.
No studio audience. It's just me and Milton, the cat, and then Karl. You looking up the date on this thing?
No, I was looking up some other hymns about dead people. So a churchyard is a graveyard. So this is walking through a graveyard and then the thoughts that come to him as he's doing it. I don't know if you've ever done that. dear listener, if you ever just go walk in the graveyard, I want to tell a story about Bernie Toussaint, who was professor at Benedictine University for a long time in Illinois. Is a friend of mine, passed away a year ago, 2 years ago. And I had to take over one of his classes at the end. His health was failing a little bit. And he had an assignment that he had the students do, which was to go to a cemetery, I think he made them spend a half an hour there, and then write something. Mm. And I tell you, it was the best papers I ever got to read.
Did everyone write this? Is it a deterministic system where if you go sit in a churchyard, this is what you do?
No, it wasn't quite as good as the elegy, but there's a lot of things that you can get out of thinking about death, the thing that nobody wants to think about, the great leveler.
I think we need to think about it a whole lot more. I really do. I think our dead loved ones need to lay in the living room for a few days, and we need to spend some time on that.
Well, the way we do death nowadays is it's somewhere else.
Right.
It happens in a hospital. They might call you in. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be there at the last moments, but it's not, it's something that, and I say lucky because you should be there. I think we have a duty to those who are going before us, and then it happens, and then they pull up the sheet, and then you call the funeral home, and then it all gets done, and there you go. It's the thing that happens to some people, but probably not me.
Mm. Right. Every show we do ends up being 2 hours. I was talking to our friend Jim Furr, who runs seminars here at Online Great Books, and we were talking about a friend of ours had passed away, and how we don't really know what to do with that stuff anymore. His daughter-in-law's father, Jim's daughter-in-law's father, owns a funeral home. Whatever, what a weird name that is, right? What do you call that business? Is that what you call it? Is that what you call them in Illinois?
Yeah.
A funeral home. It's the home of the funeral. What? And he was saying that people don't know how to do it. They're not churched any longer. They don't have any traditions around death, and they don't know how to do it. And they turn to him as the funeral home director to sell them. They consume a funeral product at this point, and he does his darndest to do a good job. I've met the man. He's who I would want to do that if I had to go that direction. But he admits that it's a poor substitute for the traditional ways that we used to deal with death. And mm-hmm. It's a big, big problem. And I think, here we go. This is where I get political.
Warning.
Yeah. Not understanding or not being around death, not seeing death as part of the life process is one of the reasons why we have such widespread panic about this COVID thing. John Pasquarello, we mention it almost every show, talks about how we may not know at the highest good, but it seems like death is the lowest bad, right, for modern Americans. And if we were around it more and we were more comfortable with it and we had ways of dealing with it that were all agreed upon, we wouldn't be as afraid of it.
Right. It doesn't. So the point is not living for an indeterminate amount of time. The point is to live because at some point you're going to be gone.
Right.
And if you had a better understanding or at least a better consciousness of that, I agree. I think it'd be better. I had a guy, I think I told this story before, Chuck. He was the head of the land surveyor crews when I was on the crew, land surveying. He died a while back, and I went to the funeral, and I think he was vaguely Christian. But the funeral, there was no structure to it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have a liturgy. They didn't have poems to read. They didn't have anything to do. It went on for 2 hours of not knowing how to deal with the fact that this guy was no longer breathing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's better. Montaigne says about these sorts of things, he has all sorts of thoughts about death. It's his one main concern, I think. But he says, do what's customary. It's all right. Do what's customary.
Yep.
It'll help. And so, anyway, so we have this thing, Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, which is a country churchyard. It is not, where's the place where they bury the famous people in England? Westminster Abbey.
Westminster Abbey, yeah. Poet's Corner.
Yeah, it's not that. This is just a country church.
It's not Woodlawn in Hollywood either, or whatever that is, where Marilyn Monroe is.
Yeah. Could just read the first stanza. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me. All right, so there's some poetry stuff in here.
Is that what it is? Something felt right about it. It's the poetry stuff.
Yeah, there's some poetry stuff. It's so there's a meter. It's iambic pentameter, if you care. So it's 5 feet of iambs, which are unstressed, stressed. That's very natural to the English language. It's hard to do other meters. Everything ends up being iambic in English. There's some odd words that are neat, like curfew.
Mm.
I found out what that means. I was chatting about that on Slack. Curfew comes from Middle French. It means cover the fire. And if you squint at it, you can see. It's like if you say cover fire real fast, it's curfew. You say it with a French accent, and it's curfew.
It's getting crazier already.
So it's the bell that means put all the fires out. And this would be a custom in the towns. And a bunch of the people on our Slack channel were saying, yeah, my town still has that. We don't know why we do it, but we still do it. You know, they just ring a bell at a certain time. Mm-hmm. And I think one of them said, went to the meeting and asked, why do we do this? Can we stop this? And the answer was absolutely not.
Right,
we're not going to stop doing it. There's also some tricks with the sound. And I only did this for one stanza or so, but there's some tricks with the sound. So the second bit, the lowing herd, so it's about the cows. They do these things in poetry. He's playing games with the sounds. The lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. Can you hear the moo of the cows in the sound? That repeated O sound?
Yeah.
The next one, the ploughman. Listen for the PL sounds, which you can't say PL fast. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way. So you're just imagining. The sound gives you the picture. It's this guy, maybe he's got his heavy boots on, and the ground's a little bit wet, and he's going home, and it's like plop, 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 plop. And you can hear it in the language. So it's good. I think you call that onomatopoeia. You can hear the sound of the thing in the words.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Yeah. Sprinkle. Cough. Words that sound like the things they are. Gosh, I almost want to read the whole poem.
I know. Wouldn't be the worst thing. Yunta?
Well, you take the next one.
Oh, gosh. You want to read it straight through, or you want to discuss it as we go?
Let's go 4 stanzas.
Okay. Now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his droning flight, and drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. Save that from yonder ivy-mantled tower the moping owl does to the moon complain, of such as wandering near her secret bower molest her ancient solitary reign. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep.
Yeah, so good. I like the image of the owl. It's just giving you the whole feel of being out. You don't need to go to the cemetery, although maybe you should, but he'll give you the image of it. There's an owl who's like a king in a tower, and the tower is the tree that the owl's in, and the owl's upset that you're still there and is complaining. You're molesting her ancient solitary reign. So, like, owls have been there for thousands and thousands of years, and your people are just new.
Her ancient and solitary reign. Yeah.
The cell, each in his narrow cell forever laid. Well, what's a cell?
That's where the monk stays.
Yeah. It's not a jail. It's just a place where you go to be apart. Now, he does something else here, and I think this guy's probably read a lot of Cicero. If he had a classical education in England, he surely did. And what Cicero will do in Latin is he'll put the kicker on the sentence at the very end. And so you read 3 lines. So beneath these rugged elms that yew tree shade where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, you don't know what he's talking about yet. Each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. And you finally get the verb, in the last word of the sentence. So there's an anticipation and you wait, and then finally he closes out the meaning. So it's a poem about dead people, but not just any dead people, the people that nobody ever heard of.
Elegy kind of gave that away, but...
Yeah, well, maybe they don't know what an elegy is.
The rude forefathers of the Hamlet.
Rude, lacking reason, maybe unrefined.
Base. It's not, I don't think this is derogatory.
No, I don't think so either. These are the people that made the land. You know, they're connected to the land, they go back to the land, but they're the reason that the land bears fruit.
Yeah, rough as in rough material, not as in coarse, right? Rough or rude as in not finished or precursor, perhaps. I don't know. It bumped me a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean...
Which he wanted to do.
Yeah. You wouldn't normally... all right, I'm reading a whole bunch of Hornblower right now because I got stuck on him because we did a podcast on it. And there's a scene in Book 11, I think, where Hornblower meets the Tsar of Russia. There's all these very fancy people at this dinner eating caviar and vodka, and these are not rude people. But then the Tsar comes on the ship, and he's seeing the rude people, the ones that make the sails go up and down or load the water onto the ship, and he's very impressed. And I think it's more that idea. Coastal elites wouldn't care about the rude, rustic, agricultural people, but they should. And I think that's a bit of what Gray is getting at. Well, we can go more in the poem and see it. I'm going to do 2 more verses. The breezy call of incense-breathing morn, the swallow twittering from the straw-built shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, no more shall rouse them from their lowly bed. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sire's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. But that line was a torpedo.
Mm-hmm.
Hit me. All of those people in the graveyard had families and home lives and wives and children who would come. They'd come home and they'd say, "Daddy, you're home," and rush and give them a hug. And well, that's all ended. But these are people of some value, you know?
It's a self-contained value. Those around their hearth derive that value.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe no one else.
Yeah, maybe no one else.
And I like that.
Well, yeah, I think there's an intrinsic value to human life. It doesn't have to be good for something else. I don't know. I do walk around cemeteries every now and then. And I go read war memorials. There's a cemetery up on the north side that I go to sometimes. There's a Serbian Orthodox monastery. There's a nice little church there. You could go in. It's quiet in the middle of the day. I remember I went in one time to stop in, and it's kind of funny. So I was hanging around in the back because I'm not actually Orthodox. I didn't want them to get mad at me and throw me out. And
that would be a better story, I bet.
But it's very quiet and peaceful. There's candles. There's icons, beautiful icons everywhere. It's something to see. And then I hear coming from behind the altar, snoring. So whoever the priest was that was on duty, he was taking a nap. His snores were coming through the church. But there's a whole bunch of Serbians buried there. You know, we had a Serbian governor, Blagojevich, and they all look like him. Some of them have pictures on it. There's names of people I don't know, and I'm just thinking, what were they like? There was a Serbian choir singer that I knew. She's not in the cemetery, but it's just, I'm thinking about her, and I'm thinking about all these people, and these people that, you know, came to America, brought their families, had lives just like mine. And I'm not quite sure how to describe the feeling. It's not sad.
No.
It's melancholy, I guess, but it's not sad. They're like me, and I'm like them. They all had mustaches.
I want to read this one stanza again. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sire's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. We do these podcasts, Karl.
Yes.
I do this one with you. I do the Music and Ideas show with you and Brother Trent. And I used to do the Barbell Logic show. And then I do guest appearances here and there. So there are a lot of people who listen to me and in a kind of an intimate way, right? They've got their earbuds in, and I've got my mouth right up against this microphone, and they get to know me, at least in that respect. And it's very false. I think they call it a pseudo-social relationship. I've heard people talk about this new phenomenon where you would have this pseudo relationship with someone who creates media or content. I hate that content creator. I don't create content. This isn't content. These are conversations that we record, and hopefully they're interesting. It's not content. Content's nothing, right? Like polyfill that you buy by the giant sack and put in pillows that your wife makes and puts on the couch is content. It's nothing. This isn't content, but it's pseudo-social. You see what I'm saying? If there's somebody here that's listening to me right now and you've listened to every episode I've done, thank you for listening, but you don't know me and I don't know you. That's no slight on you or anything like that. I owned a business for a number of years that I sold in 2018 after owning it for about 21 years, and I think that the people that worked for me were shocked that I sold it because they thought they knew me when they didn't. They knew the business owner aspect of me. I don't know that anybody can know you but the people around the hearth, Karl. Everything else, I think, is a kind of an aspect of ourselves that's to be consumed by others in some way. Mm-hmm. I wish more of us had hearths, whatever that looks like for you, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, but these people, not only, for them, the home life was most of their lives because nobody knows who they are.
It's perfect.
They're the forgotten ones. And you might think they've gotten the short end of the stick, but the poem's got to think and argue that they didn't.
Yeah. But let's name a big star. Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really known. Like, people know his name, and they know he wears weird eyeliner, and Amber Heard kicked the shit out of him and all that. But does anybody know him? Right? Does anybody actually know him? Like, he's never really truly been known, so he can't even be forgotten. Like, someday somebody will talk about Johnny Depp in the same way they do Douglas Fairbanks or something. Mm-hmm. But it's not a real knowing. Like, maybe his mom does. You know, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like these rude folk. By the way, I went and looked up an OED, and it used to just mean unsophisticated person, and it wasn't until 1946 that the first usage of it as an impolite person came up. How about that? I think that's interesting.
I wonder if I'm a rude folk.
Sometimes.
Not enough. I'm too sophisticated for my own good. I want to read some more. Oft did the harvest to their sickle yield, their furrow oft the stubborn glebe has broke. How jocund did they drive their team afield, how bowed the woods beneath their sturdy stroke. Let not ambition mock their useful toil, their homely joys and destiny obscure, nor grandeur hear with a disdainful smile the short and simple annals of the poor. So I think right there you get the theme. In those two, well, in the second of those two stanzas, ambition would likely mock them. We know in our times ambition does mock them. The people that work for a living and actually create content. Physical content. You know, like creating food.
Right.
Which is the most important content that we have, probably. But the people who create the food, they're idiots, right? There was some famous, here's where I get political. There was a famous politician, one of the ones who ran for president, who said this past year, who said about farmers, how hard can farming be? You just put stuff in the ground and it comes up. A billionaire from a coastal city.
Yeah. Hey, mess around with farmers and find out.
I don't know anything about farming, but I sure do like to eat.
Yep. Yeah, there's a pastoral aspect to this that I just love. I love the opening stanza when he talks about the lowing cattle and darkness falling on the countryside. I love it. And I love the image of these men out there working and the harvest to their sickle yielding. The furrow oft the stubborn glebe is broke.
Did you look up glebe?
I did. It's a little piece of land that you grant to the parish clergyman to farm for his own which I imagine would probably not be the finest piece of land that you had.
It's a stubborn glebe. Those
Yes.
bee sounds. It's like you're pushing your plow through the earth and hitting those bees.
I like this Virgil kind of pastoral stuff in here. And then he gets where he talks about ambition mocking their useful toil and their homely joys, destiny obscure. I've bought a new place, as you know, Karl, but not everybody. New place to live. Haven't moved out there yet, but working on that. And I was out working, fixing my fence, and the neighbor guy drove by, and I'd seen his truck out in front of his place, so I knew it was my close neighbor, close by. I hadn't really gotten to speak to him, and I flagged him down because that's what you do. And he stopped in the middle of the section line road, and I walked out in the middle of the road and leaned on the door and talked to the guy for a while. And I said, "Hey, I'm Scott Hambrick. This is where, this is what we're doing. And good to meet you." Blah blah blah. He says, "I'm Kyle." And we talk a little bit about the area and all that. We finally get around to the stuff that we always do. Well, what do you do for a living? He was embarrassed because he's a hustler, which isn't to say he's a crook. It's to say that he'll do a little welding for you if you need a little welding. He runs a few cattle. He does odd jobs and makes a little living off of his land. And by, he ties a bunch of holes together and makes a shirt out of it, is what he does. And he was embarrassed by that. I could tell. And his wife was in the truck with him. And, man, she was lovely. And he's got kids, I was driving my tractor down the road the other day, and it's loud as hell, And I had ear protection in, and I looked over to my left, and his little boy was running in the grader ditch alongside me. And he didn't have anything to be ashamed of.
Nope.
And then I don't want to tell him. He's like, "Well, what do you do?" How do I tell a guy like that what I do? Because I don't even know what I do.
We push bits around on the internet.
Right. Me and him will drink some Busch Light, and we'll get it figured out. We'll understand who the other one is here soon enough. But
yeah, which you can do because you're his neighbor.
Right.
I don't know. Here's a question: is it easier to dismiss people that you never meet?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
you have to.
But walking through the town and talking to people, everybody's got a life that means something. And you know what? As the poem's going to make the point that they might be better off.
I saw his wife.
He's doing okay?
She's a beautiful girl.
There's something about Kyle?
Yeah, he's a good guy. And he's doing what he can. And she knows it. You could tell.
Yeah.
They're going to be all right.
All right, let's read some more.
Ugh.
Are we going to do the whole thing?
I don't know.
I don't know. We're going to have another 3-hour podcast. Well, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll read this one. The boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, and all that beauty, all that wealth e'er gave, awaits alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. So That's an important thought to have, I think. It's a sad thought. It's like everybody does Halloween. They go out and dress up as ghouls and goblins. They miss the point of Halloween. It's really All Hallows Eve. So it's All Saints Day and then All Souls Day. And I think maybe they do it better in Mexico, Day of the Dead. You think about those people and that you're going to go with them. I have up in front of me some Orthodox hymns that we do at funerals, which say the same thing. Vanity are all the works and quests of man, and they have no being after death has come. Where's now our affection for earthly things? Where's now the alluring pomp of transient questing? All is going towards the grave. This is a thought that I sing at every funeral that we do. I'm singing to the people who are there with their dead loved one about how death sucks away everything you're ever going to earn. It's beautiful that we do this to them.
Yeah.
Because you need to remember that if you have this, think of it, if you have the knowledge that life is temporary and death is coming, what does that do to the activities of your daily life?
My friend Dallas says you got to keep your ticket punched.
Yeah. What does he mean by that?
You've got to be ready because the train's leaving the station at any moment.
Okay. And if you know the train's leaving and you're spending time, you're sitting there with your loved ones, your family, and I'm guilty of everything I'm going to say right now. Are you going to sit there on your phone checking Twitter to see if your favorite Twitter person said something clever. Meanwhile, missing your 5 children and your wife who are sitting right next to you. You know, if you know your ticket's punched, how are you going to spend your time?
Yeah.
The whole point of this memento mori thing, that is one of the things that the medievals got right that we've completely forgotten. In other words, remember that you're going to die, is that every day becomes more alive.
It's it can be tough to balance that memento mori bit with a long time preference. I know a guy who's been is it type 1 diabetic? He's required insulin since he was born.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I, we were in our 20s, and we were talking about Roth IRAs or some such like this, you know. And I said, have you opened one of these retirement accounts? He's like, oh, no. I was like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know, and he's like, I'm diabetic. I'm not going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
We're 45 now. That was 20 years ago. There aren't a lot of people that have been diabetic for 70 years. You know, you would hope that they would find some sort of a cure for it, and that if he had money in his Roth IRA, that he could spend that money on the cure, and then, you know, I don't know, right? It's tough. It's tough to do this well and know that that's coming too. I don't know that he's wrong, by the way. Charity's grandparents, she has her grandmother, her grandma, Ruby, talked about her on the Music and Ideas podcast. She just recently turned 86. Her paternal grandparents are both in their mid-80s. Charity and I got very sick a little over a month ago. Maybe it was COVID. I don't know. We didn't go get a test because why? They stick a thing in your nose and then they don't have any medicine for you. So we didn't bother with that. We talked to her paternal grandparents and said, well, they said, we'd like to see you guys. Come and see us. And Charity said, well, you know, we've had this. We don't want to get you sick. And they said, we would rather see you get sick and die than not see you and live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the sort of, if you don't have this illusion that you're going to live forever, then you're not so scared of doing something that ordinary humans do to live, because I'm going to die at some point anyway.
Yeah, I see this stuff on Twitter about this COVID thing and the Thanksgiving stuff, you know. I don't know why COVID is political, but cancer isn't. I don't understand. Like, it's a disease, you know. I don't understand why people made it political. But there are a lot of people, like somebody tweeted, well, my family, we're going to have Thanksgiving anyway. There's going to be 47 of them over here in the house, or, you know, something like that. And somebody says, well, I hope you feel good about killing your grandparents. I understand what they're saying. All of you have probably seen comments like this on social media. Well, I talked to some grandparents, and that's how they want to die.
Mm-hmm.
When you're 23 years old, you don't know beans about being 87.
Yeah, well, this doesn't even have to be about the current situation. You know, it can be in general. Are you living to avoid risk, or are you living to live? And remembering that no matter what you do, you're going to end up in the country churchyard at some point, I think can free you of an over focus on risk. It doesn't mean do stupid things. It doesn't mean lick the doorknobs when you go visit your grandparents.
Right.
But heck, driving a car is pretty scary.
Yeah.
And so you learn, I'm going to leave this earth at some point, and you keep that in front of you. And then what becomes more important is what you do today, rather than how do I stretch out my miserable existence? You know, why don't I have a good one?
Charity and I had a Wednesday night bridge game for 10 years with a couple that were World War II era folk. And when we started playing bridge with them, I think the husband was about 78. And one day he said, hang on just a second. He went in his bedroom and he came out and he had 3 Lucky Strike cigarettes. He said, when I turn 80, I'm going to start smoking again. And his wife was Elva. She said he's had those in the top drawer of his dresser now for 35 or 40 years. He quit smoking when we got back from South Africa in the mid-70s or something like that. Well, he turned 80 and he did not smoke those cigarettes. He did not. But then he started saying that he was never going to buy green bananas again. Yeah. It was good to hear. It was good to hear their attitudes about it. And he had been in World War II and in the South Pacific. It was a Marine and had been shot at. And every day after 45 was bonus round for that man, and you could tell.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. It's all bonus round.
Yeah.
I want to read more of the poem. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 stanzas. Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire, hands that the rod of empire might have swayed, or waked to ecstasy the living lyre. But knowledge to their eyes her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did ne'er unroll. Chilled penury repressed their noble rage, and froze the genial current of the soul. So all these people that your situation has a lot to do with how famous and prominent you become. And it might be there's lots of people pregnant with celestial fire. I think that's a good thought. You walk around, if you actually walk anywhere now and see anybody in the current situation, but say, that's a bunch of celestial fire. That's a good thought to have.
Yeah, hands the rod the empire might have swayed, or great musicians, but the knowledge and education didn't come to them, and penury repressed their noble rage. Not having enough is so demanding on your time and intellect that you can't do anything else but meet your basic needs. It's Maslow's hierarchy here. Their base needs aren't being met. They can't move to will to power because they don't have enough calories. They can't play that lyre because it requires enormous leisure. We've talked about that.
But there's benefits to it. There's benefits to it. I'm going to skip down a few more stanzas.
You have to read one about Milton.
Yeah, I'll do that one. Some village Hampden that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his fields withstood. I was wondering who that was. Is that a bull? A ram?
I don't know. When I first saw it, I thought, well, that's Napoleon. But this is pre-Napoleon. I don't know.
Some mute inglorious Milton here may rest. Some Cromwell, guiltless of his country's blood, because Cromwell, killed a lot of his countrymen. The applause of the listening senates to command, the threats of pain and ruin to despise, to scatter plenty o'er a smiling land and read their history in a nation's eyes, their lot forepaid, nor circumscribed alone their growing virtues, but their crimes confined, forbade to wade through slaughter to a throne and shut the gates of mercy on mankind. I could go on, but
that's heavy duty.
There's benefits to not being the world-shaking sort of person.
Is he saying that? Is he saying that the poverty, we'll just leave it at that the poverty has has circumscribed their crimes, has made it difficult for them to do widespread evil?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah, so I was thinking about another book that we read a while back now called Dune. And Dune is a fascinating book, but it's the story of Adolf Hitler. It's Paul Atreides, who you identify with in the story, ends up being overthrowing the emperor and going on a reign of terror, which probably wasn't good for him. It's not a good thing. I know it's just fiction. But Napoleon, a man with immense talents and the opportunity after the French Revolution to make good on them.
Yeah, was that good for Napoleon? This is in the Credo, right?
Say again?
This is in the Credo, right? Is it better to be harmed or do harm?
Yeah. Better to suffer harm than to do harm. I love this line here. Far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife, their sober wishes never learned to stray. Along the cool, sequestered vale of life, they kept the noiseless tenor of their way. And I wrote next to that, goals.
Absolutely.
It's not the maddening crowd. It's not the crowd that's making you mad. I looked it up. It's madding. The crowd is going mad.
Yep. Like wilding.
Yeah.
Their sober wishes never learned to stray.
I would like it if my sober wishes had never learned to stray.
Absolutely. This is the thing where I talked about, well, kind of. This is the Wagyu steak story. Where I talked about it not too long ago on this show about how I never wanted to try one of those because I wanted to just be perfectly happy with the steak I buy at Sam's Club.
Mm.
I wish to never stray from my sober wants and wishes. I think something that I have been good at, let me blow my own horn a little bit. is convincing myself that I like whatever it is I'm doing.
Yeah.
The business I had that I sold in 2018 is not a business that most people would enjoy. And it's not even a business that if you had written out what the thing did and handed that description to me before I got started with it, that it's nothing I would have wanted to do. But I'm really good at convincing myself that it's good and that I enjoy it.
Think about bourbon and wine. I went to one of the local liquor stores, and they had a $200 and something Chateau Lafite. I didn't buy it. And I asked the guy there, is it good? He said, yeah, it's pretty good. I said, is it 10 times better than this $20 bottle of wine? Well, it's good, but imagine if you got to the point where the only wine that you thought was any good was the $220 bottle of wine. Or think of with bourbon. There's a bourbon explosion, bourbon hipsterism around, and I like bourbon plenty. But honestly, I get past I don't know that I need the rhetoric. 23-year-old. It's real good. It's real good. But early times is pretty darn good.
Evan Williams, Bottled in Bond, pretty good. My old standby, Old Granddad 114. Used to buy 750 milliliters of that for $19. Our friend Worsham told me the other day that he was seeing it for $40. Sober wishes never learned to stray.
Yeah, if I'd never had that rhetoric,
right,
I wouldn't want it.
You're like, this moonshine that I get from my uncle's pretty good. And then when I get it, I get to share some with my uncle, and there you go.
Yeah.
Stupid Instagram.
That seems a non sequitur, but go ahead.
So my neighbors, this couple I just talked about a while ago, they may listen to this someday. I don't know. She's lovely. I don't know if I'd have mentioned that already. But, and he's a nice looking guy, and she's a nice looking gal. There are women on Instagram. Holy smoke. There's 7 billion people teeming all over the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, if you look at the top 1/100% of females in terms of aesthetics, or men and in terms of aesthetics, there's still thousands and thousands of those out of the 7 billion. And every one of them is on Instagram, taking pictures of their butt and their perfect smile and whatever. If you never saw any of that, and my neighbor met this gal at the ice cream social down at the Harmony Star Baptist Church, she would literally be the prettiest girl he'd ever seen in his whole life. There would never, ever be another that could even hold a candle to her. I promise you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be better off if you didn't see these freak shows of genetic purity on Instagram. They sure are pretty. They sure are good looking.
Yeah.
But it's changing your perception. Well, social media does that in general. It changes your perception of what's normal and good.
Right. You
got to be like the people that get all the clicks that you see. They push them into your feed. Yeah, it's probably on balance not a great thing. On the other hand, do tell all of your social media friends about our podcast.
That's right. Their name, their years, spelt by the unlettered muse, the place of fame and elegy supply, and many a holy text around she strews that teach the rustic moralist to die.
Yeah, again, I was thinking about Montaigne, who is not a rustic, but his big concern is that he make a good death. Well, it's everybody's concern. And many a holy text around she strews. All right, so you go into the cemetery, and like I go up to that Serbian Orthodox cemetery, and there's all sorts of Orthodox stuff around, a whole bunch of Christian stuff around, and I can imagine somebody going through that and sniffing and saying, medieval superstitions. Well, whatever, okay? When it comes time to punch your ticket, it would be good to have some comfort. And even if you are too sophisticated to believe any of that stuff anymore, it'd be good if you could.
Well, yes, 100%. But beyond the comfort, this last line, that teach the rustic moralist to die, it's not just the comfort, but you actually learn how to do it,
mm-hmm.
which is a comfort. People don't know how to do it, and so they're just utterly and completely terrified of it. There's something else about being a rustic in this man's milieu. They're killing animals on the reg so they can eat.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard. And I don't think it's ever not hard for conscientious people. There's a lot about being rustic that puts us closer to death and life, by the way, closer to life as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful to learn more of this, especially if you're isolated in an urban place somewhere. Get out and see where the necessities of your life come from. I think it'd be good for you.
There's a video on YouTube. It's 24 minutes long, and it's called The Whole Hog, Traditional Butchering in West Virginia. And it's an extended family that around this time of every year butcher hogs every weekend from mid to late October all the way through Thanksgiving. So they go to this cousin's house and help him butcher. Then they go to the next cousin's house the next Saturday. And so these guys, this family has been doing this, butchering several dozen hogs probably every year for decades. None of them don't remember doing it. And they say every time that they kill one of them, everybody's dead silent for a minute.
When we read Homer, they always, whenever they butcher the animals, it's like a ritual that they do. The language gets very formal and is repeated whenever they do this. But they make offerings to the gods. It's like that this beef critter is about to die and become food for us it's a miraculous thing. It's something of moment. And you go to the Walmart and get your shrink-wrapped meat that you have no idea where it came from. It allows you to forget life and death and all of that stuff.
Yeah, killing something and then feeding it to your children and watching them grow teaches you that maybe it's not all that bad either. It's not all just strictly bad. Brr. For who to dumb forgetfulness of prey, this pleasing, anxious being ever resigned, left the warm precincts of the cheerful day, nor cast one longing, lingering look behind. On some fond breast the parting soul relies, some pious drops the closing eye requires. Even from the tomb the voice of nature cries, even in our ashes live the wonted fires. Yeah.
Then he closes the poem sort of with an epitaph for himself. What somebody might think about him. So you go find some cemetery near there. Also, by the way, if you are looking to get out and have a socially distanced walk, a cemetery is a good place. A cemetery, they're usually, beautifully manicured, big enough that you can walk a couple miles around the place. I used to go running in one in Milwaukee when I used to run up to this old abandoned chapel at the top and peek in and then go running around. You think about all of those people that went before you, and maybe they were a little odd like you. Maybe they had their own habits. Well, somebody might think the same things about you. And so I'm going to read a bit more. For thee, who mindful of the unhonored dead, dost in these lines their artless tale relate, if chance by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate. Haply, means by chance, some hoary-headed swain may say, and this is what they're going to say about you. Oft have we seen him at the peep of dawn, brushing with hasty steps the dews away to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. There at the foot of yonder nodding beech that wreathes its old fantastic roots so high, he's listless length at noontide would he stretch, and pore upon the brook that babbles by. Hard by yon wood, now smiling as in scorn, muttering his wayward fancies he would rove, now drooping woeful van like one forlorn, or crazed with care, or crossed in hopeless love. One morn I missed him on the custom hill, along the heath near his favourite tree. Another came, nor yet beside the rill, nor up the lawn, nor at the wood was he. The next, with dirges due in sad array, slow through the church-way path we saw him borne. Approach and read, for thou canst read the lay graved on the stone beneath yon aged thorn. And then he gives the epitaph. Just talking about this weird guy who likes to go lay in at lunchtime underneath the tree. Yeah. Hope somebody remembers you, or takes the time even to read an epitaph. That's a good thing to do too. Go to war memorials and go read epitaphs in cemeteries. Beloved wife and mother, Sometimes they say more than that. Usually now it's just a little thing. Was it W.C. Fields? On the whole, I'd rather be in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
well, that tells you something.
This is a good one. Karl, I had to read the damn thing, I don't know, 5 or 6 times before it started to come together for me. I'm not good with this, reading this poetry in meter and rhyme.
It comes with a little practice. I think it's worth the effort. I think more people ought to read poetry than do. Nowadays, it's about the same number that read it, maybe less. Maybe less people read it than write it. You take a little time, you learn a little bit about meter, you learn to see some of the things that the great poets are doing with sound. I think it's worth the time. And I would start with poets that are, I wouldn't go to modern poets. I would stay away from modern poets. I would read poets that stick with the rhyme scheme, that write sonnets, that do stuff in the structure so you can learn the structure. And then if you want to, you can go read modern stuff.
Read some Keats, some Thomas Gray. Who else? Give some names.
Give some names, gosh. Well, you should read Shakespeare's sonnets. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
They're clever. They stick with the form. You won't go wrong with Shakespeare.
Burns.
Yeah, except that his language is, he does the Scottish language, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I hadn't come up with a list. I'll give you a suggestion, though. There is on archive.org, at least there used to be, a book called Poems That, I think it's on Gutenberg, Poems That Every Child Should Know. So I'm actually going to look that up.
Yep. This is in there, by the way. Can you imagine? Did you have to read this in school, in like junior high or something?
I might have read it in high school.
I think I read it in maybe ninth grade or something like that.
I don't know. Yeah, Poems That Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt.
Yep.
You can find this on Archive. It's actually an audio recording. I think it's on Gutenberg, but I don't have time to look for it. There's all sorts of just poems. They used to be published in newspapers. Robert Louis Stevenson has a wonderful set of poems for children. Just beautiful, beautiful poems that can get you started on the idiom. You don't need to go to Lord Byron to start with. Come on.
Poe, go read The Raven.
Yeah.
Go read about Annabelle Lee.
Or The Owl and the Pussycat. You know, some of the silly nonsense stuff. I think it's worth the time. Now, why do they write? They write poems in meter. It's memorable. It's concise. It leads to you thinking. I mean, everybody remembers all the Who's down in Whoville loved Christmas a lot, but the Grinch who lived north of Whoville did not. Well, why do you remember that? Because it's metered and it rhymes. So there's a reason people did verse.
I don't know, but I've been told a big lake woman ain't got no soul.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's how you know. That's how you remember these things. Gosh, you want to talk about our picture?
Sure. I'm just flipping through that book. I found it on Gutenberg. It's the first poem is The Arrow in the Song. I shot an arrow into the air, it fell to earth, I know not where. For so swiftly it flew, the sight could not follow it in its flight. I breathed the song into the air, it fell to earth, I knew not where. For who has sight so keen and strong that it can follow the flight of song? Long, long afterward in an oak, I found the arrow still unbroke, and the song from beginning to end I found again in the heart of a friend. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow.
Not bad.
I'm a poet and I didn't know it, but my feet show it. They're Longfellows.
Gross.
No, go read some poetry. All right, so we wanted to do a diptych here, a double thing. I think it's a good companion to Elegy in a Country Churchyard. It is Freedom from Want. It is Norman Rockwell.
I thought it was a good companion too, and I can't quite put my finger on it, why that's the case, but I didn't really plan it that way. I don't think you did either. We just said, well, this would be all right to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about hearth, I guess, and
normal
forgotten people.
Well, if you look at this painting, let me see. It's predominantly white in color, so the dark brown turkey is set off in the middle. And there's a line of heads on the left, a line of heads on the right. They're all very excited. It looks like the grandfather, probably,
Yeah, at the head of the table with Grandma.
is about to do his ritual action of carving the turkey. It's like, it's always the job of the elder male to carve it. I don't know why.
Because nobody wants to do it. Have you ever heard anybody say, please let me? No.
Well, it's like, all right, you've read Beowulf, right?
Yeah.
Talks about the king giving gifts. He was a good king. You know, it's part of being the patriarch to hand out the meat.
Mm.
There's ancient stuff in these customs. And he just looks so happy. He's ready to do it. You can see his wrinkled fingers. He's an older guy, but this is his big moment every year. He's happy. How many kids are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then probably maybe his sister over there. I mean, this is a big family.
And this is just the main table.
Yep. Did you have to wait a long time to get out the kids' table? I was at the kids' table, I think, when I was 18.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
And the wife has got her best dress on. She's got her hair done. She's got a brooch on and a perfect white apron. And she's worked on that turkey. So this is her glory.
It's a big turkey, too.
Yeah.
I hope you guys go look at this thing. Stop the tape and go look at this thing for 15 minutes and then come back and talk about it with us. Have you ever been to a Thanksgiving dinner that beautiful?
Mm-mm.
I haven't. But it's very simple. White tablecloth, simple flatware, just beakers of water.
Yeah, no wine.
One bowl of fruit. The only silver on the table is probably the salt and pepper shaker. Everything else is just, stainless steel, whatever 1945 flatware you would get from Sears or something like that. But it's just beautiful. Lights coming through the window behind them. It's a perfect Thanksgiving. How in the hell did he paint all this white on that white canvas and make it shine and like that?
I don't know. Rockwell. So Rockwell was an illustrator, produced paintings. Was it The Atlantic? For the covers, and lots of them.
Saturday Evening Post.
And some of them are funny, but they're all very good artistic technique. But I find in Rockwell, I think there's a love of the subject. It's not mocking. I've got a few in here that I just love, like The Marriage License from 1955. A young man and his bride in there signing the marriage license. It's just perfect. It's perfect. She glows. She's in a yellow dress and just everything else is brown. And that's just the way it should be. She should be the center of attention. The Girl at the Mirror from 1954. This, because I have daughters, this poor girl, she's got a picture of some Hollywood star in her lap. And she's looking in the mirror and trying to make her face look like the Hollywood star. They're worth getting yourself a book of Norman Rockwell's and just looking at them. Everybody knows all that, like the gawky young kids playing baseball that he'd paint. But this one's more serious than that. This one, there isn't anything of caricature to this. I like the little face in the corner, the top left, or in the middle left. Mm-hmm. It says young girl, and it's like somebody has told a joke, and she's happy that she gets it. She's finally at the grown-up table.
I don't think she has a chair, Karl. I think she's standing there. Because, see, there are 4 people on the right-hand side of the table and 4 on the left. I think, and she's a 5th head over there on the left.
Maybe that's right.
I don't think she has a seat, quote-unquote, a seat at the table yet.
Oh, but I love her smile.
Yeah, and in the bottom right corner, somebody's uncle is looking at the artist.
I wonder if that is the artist.
I don't think it is. That doesn't look like Norm.
They're all just smiling and happy. Just happy to be together. I just love this painting.
And happy to be together, but the title of the thing's Freedom from Want.
Well, okay, so what does that mean, freedom from want?
Well, at least on this day, they want for nothing. We just talked about how these mean wants constrain the lives of those people that lay in the country churchyard. This painting was painted during the Roosevelt administration, after the Great Depression. And
well, it's the middle of the war, too.
in the middle of the war. I read, unfortunately, I screwed up and I read a little bit about this thing. This was commissioned by the Office of War Information. I read that people overseas in other countries that were war-torn, we were not, of course, resented this a great deal. But coming out of the Great Depression and saving your lard and your tin cans and doing all kinds of war material drives and such, I think that this is a good piece of propaganda, probably.
Yeah, but I think it also brings to mind, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday, my favorite non-church holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love those moments where we're actually together. There's people I only see once a year,
mm-hmm.
and that would be when we would see them at my mother's house. We're not doing it this year, and I'm not very happy about that. And you can be a kid again, and you can hang out with my stupid brothers and yell at them, and they'd yell at me, But it'd be like we were back in 1985, and just seeing how people are. I think that's very important. I think freedom from want that doesn't include companionship.
Mm.
I could sit in front of Netflix with my turkey apart from my family on Thanksgiving. I don't think I would have freedom from want. Not even if I had him on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Where's all the food on this table? It's freedom from what? It's not. This is not a huge spread. There's a casserole dish or some sort of a covered dish here, some celery, some cranberry sauce, and some fruit, and the turkey. That's it. I don't see stuffing, pecan pies.
No pumpkin pie.
No pumpkin pie. It's disgusting. It's not just about hunger. I looked it up, Karl. Miss Thaddeus Wheaton is serving the turkey. All of the people in this picture are his friends and family. She was the family cook. She worked for them. The 9 adults and 2 children were photographed in Rockwell's studio and painted into the scene later. The models are clockwise to Miss Wheaton, who's serving the turkey, Lester Brush, Florence Lindsay, Rockwell's mother, Nancy. So that's the older lady. Jim Martin, he's the one looking at us. Mr. Wheaton, Mary Rockwell, Charles Lindsay, and the Hoisington children.
Well, that Florence is a knockout.
Yeah?
The brunette on the right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, now I don't want to know who they are because I want to just picture them as a family.
Right.
Because I'm looking at, I guess that's Rockwell's mother then, the gray-haired lady on the right. It's kind of what I would do. So when that kid show up, the nephews and nieces, bunch of rabble. But they come up and they do all of their stuff. And I'm not, I'm older now, so I've gone from being the kid to being one of the older people at the party.
I wondered what you were going to say there.
But see, she's just kind of smiling. It's like
right.
she's not participating in the joke, but she's enjoying that there's a joke.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of me. Either that or I'm the guy looking at the camera.
That's Mr. Stewart, and he's in all 4 of the freedom paintings. So I think
yeah, I've got all 4 of them here. I like the freedom of speech one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good painting.
We just did a show on Music and Ideas podcast about blues, and we were talking about Robert Johnson and then later Muddy Waters and how so much of what they played has become a cliche, but when it was new, it was groundbreaking. But it's like, I'll be platonic here, Karl. It's like the stuff that Robert Johnson played, even though nobody had ever heard it before, was so natural and right. It's like it had always been there. And then once he pointed it out to everybody, they picked it up, and that became... Then we all knew what blues was, So these wonderful things that arrive on the scene through the genius of someone, eventually, sadly, upsettingly, become cliche. And Rockwell has kind of done that, or become that. And you see him so much that you just can't see how wonderful it is anymore,
Mm-hmm. Well, how can you recover it? This is we in our gateway sessions, our friend John Pasquarella has been doing an essay by Walker Percy called The Loss of the Creature, which deals with this problem. It's very hard to see things like an adventurer. Whether it's Norman Rockwell or whether it's the Thanksgiving feast, which actually it might be a good part about the current situation if you are not able to do your family tradition this year. Maybe you can think about it and realize what a great thing it is.
Yeah, do it like a tourist and say, oh my gosh, this is American cuisine. This is American tradition. Look at what this is. Where did this come from? What is this?
Imagine having a turkey for the first time.
I could do without that, turkeys. Poverty poultry.
But I think there's something, trying to be an explorer in your own life, and you're really blessed if you're never bored. Even if it's doing the same thing. Do you get bored with your family? You shouldn't. Every day should be new.
I bought some Busch Light the other day, Karl.
Why did you do that?
Because it was on sale. It was 30 cans for $12.45. And my Uncle Henry drinks Busch Light, and I thought, I'll get this, and I'll drink it. If I don't like it, I'll give it to Henry. Well, Charity and I cut and stacked 2 ricks of firewood, and I said, let's have some of that. So we stopped. I got into the ice chest, and there was a bunch of stuff in the ice chest. There was a protein shake in there. There was Coke Zero. There were bottles of water. There were other beers, all kinds of stuff in there. And I grabbed it, and I thought, I'm not going to look at this. And I popped the top on it, and I didn't know if it was going to be, I had no idea what it was going to be. Those protein shakes are even in cans like soft drinks. And I drank it, and I was like, this is delicious. It was a Busch Light. It was perfect.
You didn't know that you weren't supposed to like it.
Right. It was perfect. I
don't know. I had it in college. I'd have to recover it. I haven't gotten to Busch Light yet. I've recovered Coors.
Yep.
And Old Style.
My brother-in-law likes to drink Michelob Ultra. Some of those tall, skinny cans.
Yeah.
And I always tell him it's the Virginia Slims of beer. I said, did you see an ad for that in Cosmopolitan magazine next to the Virginia Slims? He gives me the finger. It's pretty good too.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that Busch Light, if you eat that with Mexican food, it's going to get covered up. It's not the most flavorful stuff. But if you've just cut and split 2 ricks of firewood and you're sitting on a tailgated truck, it's just right. I didn't need to be punched in the face with a milk stout or something.
Or 3,000 IBUs of hops.
Again, back to the cliche thing. I hate that this has become tired or old hat or old-fashioned or cliche. At some point, this will transcend that, right? 500 years from now, people are going to care about these a great deal.
About the Rockwell paintings?
Yes.
I hope so, because I think they're good.
We're in the lull where it's grandma's stuff. Currier and Ives lithographs are worth a lot of money now, and they're cliche. They talk about them in Christmas songs, and Sleigh Ride talks about. It's wonderful. Robert Johnson's wonderful. Sounds like cliche. Sounds corny. The Jimmy Rogers stuff that I love sounds corny. The reason it sounds corny is because you know it too well now.
If you look at Rockwell, or if you look at this Thanksgiving painting and I don't know where this expression comes from, but you sneeze at it and you're like,
right.
What's really going on here?
Right. So your mom and dad got divorced when you were 8, and they fought over you every Thanksgiving, and you never knew where you were going to be, and your Thanksgiving didn't look like this because your aunt's a twat and all of that. Listen, stop. Quit putting your stuff on this.
Yeah, it might be something like that, or you might just have grown too ironic and cynical. There's that phrase about a cynic. The cynic knows the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Yeah.
It'd be better if you could come at things simply and say, you know what? I sure wish I could have a large family meal with my family.
Right. And enjoy it.
And I'm not going to get to do it this year. Not with my extended family.
Sometimes it's hard to enjoy it. It is. And it's okay to look at a painting like this and see people that are enjoying it and be into that. I hate me some baby boomers, Karl. And I'm Generation X. I think you're Generation X.
Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be cynical.
one of the big problems with them is their sense of humor. They're just too cool for everything. Cynical about everything, sarcastic about everything. Everything's ironic. They just don't take anything for face value and accept it and embrace it.
Is this boomers or Xers?
Xers, Generation X. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's also an opportunity. If you are like us, it's an opportunity to recover some things.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an explorer and find some of these simple pleasures like Busch Light, which I haven't done yet. I saw it on sale too, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that.
Why not?
I didn't like it much in college. I have to do some recovery on light American beer. I've gone to regular American lager, but not the light stuff yet.
Head for the mountains of Busch.
The sound, the name sounds good. Busch. It sounds like opening the beer.
Yeah. Well,
but no, I really think you can be an explorer in your own life and find some of these things that you have been too disillusioned to enjoy, and find something there. And a good way to start is grab yourself some Norman Rockwell and just look.
We're moving towards being the elders now, Karl.
Yeah, I know.
We're both 50, if you round. So Generation X is going to be very careful about this. I'm making broad generalizations, and people get mad when I do this, but I don't know how you talk about anything if you don't generalize. I don't know how you do that. I mean, I could pick up a jack ball, and I'll be like, we could talk about the specific jack balls, but at some point, this specific one, but at some point you have to talk about all of them and how they bounce. Well, I've got one that doesn't bounce. Shut up. The baby boomers created a lot of latchkey kids, a lot of divorce. There's a lot of cultural change around those people. And they never stopped telling us about it. They never stopped telling us about Woodstock and how awesome they are and how their farts don't stink. But this Generation X, the latchkey kids, it was just nonstop crap on the local news about latchkey kids and stuff in the 80s. And all of your friends' parents were divorced probably. But we're moving into that thing where we're going to be the elders. I think there's something to be learned from this art about how to do things right. Mm-hmm. And I hope that Generation X and then these millennials behind them and then the Zoomers behind them, I hope we all make an effort to start putting Humpty Dumpty back together again and make a do Humpty Dumpty too.
There's a story that Chesterton tells. I think it's in the book Orthodoxy about a man who wants to go and discover new lands. He's tired of where he is, and so he goes around the world and sails, for days and days and days, and then comes back and lands on this island and gets out of his boat and he walks on the island and he discovers how beautiful and how neat it is. And it turns out it's just England.
Right.
But that he had to go away and recover it and realize how it's not just England, it's England, with all the glories of what England was or is. But he had to get away and realize that it was something worthwhile. I think that's the task that a lot of us have is all of that old-fashioned stuff. I can even hear some of our people are going to yell at me and say I have too much attachment to old-fashioned stuff. I don't care.
Culture isn't a technology. It's not something you update and get a faster version of.
I sure wish I could have a family dinner with my extended family. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's out of style. I don't think you can make it out of style. You might make it illegal, but it's an objective good. Heck, conversation with people and not sitting on phones is an objective good.
Here's a serious question. Is dinner with your family an objective good if they're a bunch of outlaws and bad actors?
Maybe not. You have to have a little bit of a buy-in to the family. Mm-hmm. But everybody coming together in my mother's house and realizing there is something that unites us. I'm going to miss it. I'm looking at some Rockwell paintings here while we talk.
Last weekend, you and your short crew made a mad dash down here and I got to spend a little time with you. And that was hard work for you, and I appreciate that very much. I hope that was good for you. Thank you for doing that.
It was good. Wish it could have been longer. I was looking at some Rockwell painting series. One of these is fixing a flat, which I think is very funny. This guy sitting in his cottage, in his shack with his feet up, and then there's two pretty girls fixing a flat down below the hill, and he's not budging. I think that's funny. And then there's another one saying grace. Gosh, this might be everything I'm thinking about right now. So if you look up saying grace, it's his boy and his grandmother, and they're eating lunch in some diner, I guess, and they're saying their prayers. And then these young toughs with their cigarettes looking at him like, what are they doing? What's that thing? And then there's an old man in the corner looking at him like he knows what it is, but maybe he doesn't do it anymore. Yeah, everybody's staring at him, but they're just doing what people always used to do.
We are a little nostalgic, Karl, you and I.
We are. Guilty.
Trads, perhaps. Me in particular, they never attack you, and they give us 5-star reviews, and they say stuff like, I love Karl, and they're...
That really bugged you, didn't it?
No. I love Karl, too. I'm glad they do. I'm a little bit of a lightning rod, I think, which is fine. And they're like, well, I kind of get attacked for that, or I get, at least people come at me with rebuttals about me saying that people shouldn't leave home, that they ought to buy the house right next to their mom and dad's and move in over there, whatever. Eschewing the Japanese steak and so on. And in listening to and having these people email me about this and message me on Slack about this and listeners DM me on social media about this, I've realized that a lot of these people, I would say, I'll generalize again, most of them never had anything to lose. So when I describe these things, they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't have a home. If you live in a tract home in a top 40 radio market, and you move from market number 38 to market 28 in another tract home, it's identical. They can't tell. So when I'm like, stay where you're at, explore your roots or whatever. They don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, they're not at anywhere.
Right. They don't have it. And so they don't even know what I'm talking about. So when I describe it, they think I'm just making things up because they don't even have anything to recover. At this point, they have to go create it. They got to go put down roots for their family, create a sense of place for their family, etc., because it's gone.
Yeah, well, they might say to us, well, why do you need to put down roots?
Right.
I don't know, so you know where you are, so you know what you are. That song that is a bit haunting to me, that Roots song, No Roots. I like digging holes and hiding things inside them. What's the lyric? Someday I hope I'll come back and find them. We've got no roots. I don't know I don't think that's a great way to be. A large part of what you are as a human being is what community do you belong to? And if you don't belong to one, it's easy to drift.
Yeah, the roots, go back to our episode on Alistair McIntyre, the roots help us identify our telos.
Yep. And give us ways to get to it. And by telos, we mean the goal of your life, the end. It's a Greek word.
Yeah. Yeah, so if nothing else, if you've never been to a Thanksgiving dinner like the one in this Rockwell painting, if nothing else, it points out what it was and what it could have been. I don't know, you might cut this out and put it in your commonplace book under Thanksgiving and figure out what the heck you want, what you want yours to be like.
Yeah, or even have a dinner party.
I've got this book group, and people ask me, sometimes people ask, how do I do that? And I said, well, set a date, put it on your calendar, send out paper invitations, tell people where it's going to be, what to read, and what you're going to offer. There's going to be cheese and crackers and RC Cola, whatever. And when the meeting's going to start, when it's going to stop. And then, anyway, some of these people I talk to have never hosted anything. So they're like, cheese and crackers, what do you mean? Now, a lot of people know exactly what I'm talking about. And you're thinking that I'm dumb right now telling this story. There are a lot of people who have never hosted anything whatsoever. Their mom and dad were divorced. Mom and dad never had dinner parties. Mom and dad never hosted anything. Grandma and grandpa lived in New Jersey, and then they moved to Colorado Springs in 1983.
It was one of the neat things we did in grad school, late 90s. So we would have dinner parties. Mm-hmm. Just college kids. Well, I was in grad school. They were mostly undergrads. But we'd go to somebody's house and we'd cook. I think that's really neat. It's probably why I'm still friends with some of them, even though I have one friend from there that is a communist, I think. And I don't know what we have in common, except that we were friends and we ate food together.
Yeah, that's good enough.
And drank beer together. And so I think we're still friends.
I used to be a part of 2 different round robin groups. One of them was a bridge group, and we played cards one Friday night a month. And there were 4 couples, and we took turns hosting it. And whoever was hosting cooked the entree. And then one couple would bring dessert, another would bring a side, and another one would bring bread. And you took turns. So nobody was ever having to cook up a whole darn dinner. Perfect. And then we were in another one, which was just a dinner group. And it was bigger than, I think it was 8 couples. So, but it was the same kind of thing. Yeah, people used to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Dinner parties. The Jenkins...
You used to have ashtrays,
right,
though.
Yeah. The Jenkinses are coming over for dinner, honey. Don't forget.
You might even get dressed up for it.
Let's not get crazy. Let's not get crazy. I don't even have things. I can't even dress up anymore. I don't even have any of those things. My bench press went way up.
That's a subtle brag.
That's right. My suits and things, and I don't have.
He got too jacked for his formal wear.
That's true. I'll wear my striped bib overalls. Yeah, that's a wonderful painting. I'm glad you brought that thing up. I stared at it a lot, and I will continue to stare at it. Wouldn't be a bad idea to print that thing out and put it on, make that the place setting for everybody. Put that on the place setting for everyone. Write their name on it for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
kind of set the mood.
Well, what are we going to do next week?
Holy crap! What was it?
Christmas Carol?
Are we there yet?
We're getting there. I got my copy.
I ordered it too. I think we're a little early. Let's do... I think we're a little early. Is that what you want to do? If that's what you want to do, Karl, I'm there for you.
No, it's fine. I wanted to do that around Christmas.
Yeah, I think we need to wait just a little bit. I was thinking Federalist Paper number 51.
Sounds controversial.
Yeah, probably. Tain't very long.
We can do that.
This guy named Publius wrote that.
I don't think that's his real name.
It's the structure of the government must furnish the proper checks and balances between the different departments.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
It seems like a good idea. I wonder if anyone will do it.
That's fine. I'll save it for the show. I'll save it for the big show. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. That is the Online Great Books podcast.
And hey, listen, if you get mad at any of my old-fashionedness, I want to tell you, the reason why I'm old-fashioned is because I actually like people, even if it doesn't seem like it, and I want people to be happy, and I think some of this stuff is a way to be happy. It's not because I want to tie you down to ancient ways. It's because I think they're good ways.
Yeah, it's important to have ways. Yeah, it is. And if there are actually new ways, I don't think I have a problem with that. But I think we're in a place right now where we don't embrace old ways, but there is no new way.
Right.
Yeah. What is the if people don't do dinner parties anymore with other couples and their neighbors? What is the modern new analog to that? So, pick something that people used to do. What is the new analog to that? Like the Roman way to do that would be go down to the vomitorium and like pig out and then puke together with your neighbors or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. In old days, people used to go to church and church festivals, and well, now they don't. What do they do to replace that?
There's no harvest festival. now. So how do we celebrate the changing of the seasons in the modern era?
Well, how do you make contact with other humans?
Right.
For me, that's the big problem. It's like my friend, I know we're already running long. I had a friend who one day announced that, well, he'd had a couple divorces and some bad luck in his life. And he announced on social media that now he was an atheist.
Okay.
And I thought I had a pretty good response to him. I haven't heard from him in a while, but I have to look him up. But I said, all right, that's fine, but where are you going to go to church?
Yeah.
And what I meant by it, and he got the meaning, was where are you going to go for your rituals? Where are you going to go for your people?
Right.
I could tell you what he settled on. Episcopalian.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah, I should look him up. See how he's doing.
Well, again, there's another Great Books podcast. Send it to somebody you like. Send it to somebody you don't like. Send it to somebody you think won't like me. All those things would be helpful to the show. Know that on December 7th, we will be opening enrollment again. And if you go to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast, you can sign up and you'll get a discount there. And you can read the larger program with us. And we'll send you hard copy books. You get a membership at OED.com, which is the Oxford English Dictionary.com. That's a $95 a year value, Karl. Do you know that when you sign up with us, you also get a membership to OxfordReference.com, which is kind of like the Oxford Encyclopedia, which is...
I just found that out.
I did too. One of our members told me. I didn't even know. A stupid Oxford. Oxford is clearly not a business. They're terrible at almost everything they do, including education at this point. I pay a lot of money every year so our members can all get on OED.com. They didn't tell me, oh, by the way, Mr. Hamburg, with that money you've spent, wait, there's more. They never did that.
Well, you were already sold. They didn't need to sell you.
They don't even have like a little PDF they can send you that says, okay, you bought the platinum package. Here's what, no. So yeah, go join there. And that'll be December 7th. We'll be open for 7 days as we always are. And then we'll kick it off. Send you those books. You get those reference materials. And if you're hardcore enough to get through the Odyssey with me, I'll send you a shirt. Stay around a little longer. We'll send you some leather goods. I don't know.
Leather goods.
Yeah. All right. That's enough rambling. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week about Federalist Paper number 5-1. Bye.